Happy Wednesday. Hello, 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 all of you wonderful OBMs out there. It is so good to be back. I tell Leah all the time, this is my favorite part of the week, hands down. It is so good to see all of you, chat with all of you. And I know based on all the DMs I've been getting, based on all of your comments, based on how many people wanted to be here, that career pivoting and reinvention is at the top of everyone's mind. And I just posted a quick live on this. I mean, if you think about it, online business managers as a whole, that's a new career. Like, really, a lot of people don't know what this is. They know a virtual assistant and they know a fractional COO, but they don't know that there's really this in between. And so, by definition, since it's new, all of you have been through career pivots. All of you have done some reinvention. All of you are at different stages of the career pivot, but that doesn't mean that all of the nervousness and what ifs and scared and not sure what to go do next like goes away. And that's why I am so excited to have our guest on. But before we get started, hello everyone. If this is your first time, I am Ashley Connell, CEO and founder of Prowess Project. What Prowess Project does is we help women returning to the workforce or who want to pivot into their career. We train them to be online business managers, and we gather data through the training process and match them up with their ideal CEOs who want to scale but need someone hands-on managing the business for them. So excited to have all of you here. So first, as always, we do a quick question. So put into chat, how many career pivots have you been through? How many career pivots have you been through? Give me a number. Too many to count. Oh my God, I love it. 3+, I love it. 2, awesome. 3, amazing. God, this is so inspiring. I just love this so much. I was thinking about it myself. It's been at least 3, if not 4. 2, amazing. More than 3 or 4, Daphne, I love it. Rachel, Lisa, so good to see all of you. Yes. Amazing. So reason why I have been so pumped for this live today, Angel, yes, 3, love it. The reason I've been so pumped is I met Jess a while ago when I was doing a ton of networking to help women get back into the workforce. And what I loved about what Jess was doing, and she'll tell you all about it, is she saw this problem, but instead of just going to just what the data said, she went out and wanted to hear success stories from super accomplished women who did have a career pivot, who did have a reinvention. And that's why I am so excited to introduce you to Jess Galica. Come on up, girlfriend. Hello.
Hey, Ashley. Hey, everyone. I am so excited to be here too.
Oh, so glad to have you. So glad. Okay, so Jess, as always, I want you to introduce yourself. Give us a quick and dirty of how all of this kind of came to be.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I'm a mom to 2 young kids. So I've got a 3-year-old daughter and an 8-month-old son, and hold that rule really, really close and important to my heart. And then professionally, I started my career in the startup world. I then went back to business school to get my MBA. From there, I worked in management consulting at Bain, which is one of the biggest strategy firms in the world. And then I pivoted back into the tech world and worked for some big name companies like Apple and Siemens. And so I like to say I had achieved a lot of these shiny gold stars in terms of my career path. But then in early 2020, I kind of woke up and had one of these moments of feeling really unfulfilled in my career and really uncertain about how I wanted to change my career trajectory to get to somewhere new and different. And at the same time, I was pregnant with my now 3-year-old and stepping into this motherhood role for the first time. And I could see that it was changing my entire view of what ambition and achievement in my career looked like. And so I got curious and started reaching out to other women, like you said, Ashley, who had made these types of big career changes for themselves. And what surprised me so much is actually not the specific things they had to tell me, but just the fact that every woman, it felt like, that I reached out to who was at a similar stage, maybe 10, 15, 20 years into their career, who often was thinking about caregiving roles in new ways, whether that was as a mother or even thinking about caring for aging parents. Like, we all were having this collective career crisis of like, wow, we were told we could have it all. And now we're here and we're waking up and realizing it's not working out exactly the way that we were told. And so, long story short, that led me to the research in the book that you see here, Leap: Why It's Time to Let Go to Get Ahead in Your Career, which I say is really for any woman who is navigating work or corporate careers and feeling really lost or really unfulfilled or just not thriving. But is uncertain or fearful of how to make a change. And so, yeah, happy to be here and talking about the research, the book, and my personal experience as well. And I think it will obviously resonate with many of the women who are joining us here today.
Well, yes, that immediately leads me to my next question. If y'all in the audience related to anything Jess just said, which I expect all of you, put into the comment. Give me a high five, give me a hands up, give me a love, whatever. Because everything you said, I was like, yep, 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 yep. Uh-huh. It's so true. And so I just want to share with everyone in the audience. This time is for you. I have a ton of questions, but reminder, whatever questions you have, I want you to put into the chat and we will absolutely ask them. We'll absolutely ask them. All right. And why I also love this is, as a reminder, this is why we started Prowess Project, because I could see this. I didn't have the data and I didn't go out and do all the interviews like Jess did, but we saw all this career pivoting happening, but we needed a solution for all of these women. And so that's why we created Prowess. Again, why I absolutely love what Jess is doing. So Jess, next question for you. So thank you for sharing where you were. Do you have any high-level data that you can share with the community on women who pivot in their careers or reinvent themselves?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much data. I was thinking about, okay, what are the pieces that I want to pull from? And I think there's a couple kind of insights or themes that I want to state, and there's some data behind them. And the first, Ashley, you've gotten at already, which is that pivoting is the new normal. I think we historically have had this view of like, oh, well, pivoting is something that's reserved for, the rare person that really wants to change their trajectory. No, full stop. No, right? Career pivoting is just part of the new normal today for anyone building a career. And we see that in different statistics, right? One is that only 15% of people report being fully engaged at work. So we know there are so many people who are having these reflections about, what do I want work to mean for me? Am I doing the type of work that I want to be doing? They're thinking about that because the vast majority of people are saying no to those questions. And we also know that more tactically. So if we look at the millennial demographic, on average, a millennial is changing jobs 4 times within the first decade of their career. So those things come together just to say, 4 times, right? So you might be spending a couple of years in a job, 1 year, and then you're moving on, right? And so I think all of this comes together, which is to say that, pivoting is the new normal. It's an unbelievable skill set to adopt. No matter where you are on kind of the risk profile or I like to have variety and change things up, like there will be change and reinvention in your career. So starting to get comfortable with that and really learning how to do that well is such an advantage. So that's the first one.
So a quick question on that. So if most people are pivoting, why does it feel so scary? Like, why? Like, it's not normalized. Like, why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, I think generally the way that we look at careers is often through this very masculine lens. And part of that masculine lens is really taking the emotional aspect out of it. So it's interesting. When I thought about career pivots and doing this research on it, I initially thought the book would be, here's the 8 tips to execute a career pivot or a career change. But
Yeah.
actually, women are phenomenal when it comes to execution and being able to get stuff done. The harder part of a career pivot, yep, the harder part of a career pivot is navigating all of the emotions. So women are struggling
Mm,
to even get to that point where they can get to the commitment. Once they are committed, the execution, I would argue, is a lot easier. But there's no way around tough emotions when you're talking about a big change. There is fear, there is guilt, there is shame. And I think we need to normalize the fact that that doesn't mean that you're on the wrong track or that anything is wrong with you. This is just a normal part of experiencing one of the big part of our lives for many people, which is work. So I love the idea of normalizing these emotions and really learning to kind of cope and process those better so that we can get to the point where we're ready to even execute.
man, that is amazing. That's so true. I never thought about it like that. We typically look at like our career path as from a masculine lens, which does oftentimes take out the emotion. That's such a good point that I had never considered. And I'm loving seeing all the comments in the chat. Like, Rachel, I'm so happy to see this. Yes, Lisa, exactly. I'm not the same person I was before I had kids. The career has to grow with me.
Yes.
So, Jess, do
Yeah.
you see that being, I mean, you mentioned before caregiving, but are you seeing this alignment with career? It's got to grow with my growing family.
Yes. Yes, I am. I mean, I can talk about this from my personal perspective and then with regards to so many of the stories that are in the book. But from my personal perspective, I mean, career was a big part of my identity before I became a mom. And if you think about like a pie chart, right? There's only, you got 100% of your life. When you think about the role
Yeah,
that parenthood will play, it's going to be a massive part of that pie chart. And so to think
right.
that career, the career slice of the pie isn't going to have to change is just not realistic. It is going to change. And so that was certainly my lived experience. And then what I saw in the book is, you know, in some ways, it's no surprise that the women who I was engaging with 10, 15, 20 years into their career, that is often, lines up with the time that many women are thinking about motherhood or becoming mothers or steeped in young motherhood, right? Or are at some phase of their motherhood journey. And it's just an unbelievable demand that is placed on women to navigate career and to play a disproportionate role in most cases of all of the labor that goes on inside of the home. And so it's definitely a natural transition point, I think, in terms of the demands that are women, but more optimistically, too. I think women's expectations can change too when they become moms. And to kind of put it bluntly, like sometimes people just become less willing to like put up with the bullshit, right? It's like,
Totally.
wow, we have this amazing, role that we have in our life now as a mother. We need to prioritize more ruthlessly than ever before. And like, I just cannot do this anymore, right? My bar is higher for where I want to invest my time. And so that can be a more like positive spin on the motherhood impact as well.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was just talking to my friends and my neighbors about that, I think a week ago, of just I don't have time for any drama. Like my cup is full with everything else I have. The last thing I'm going to do is deal with bullshit.
Yeah.
So I love that. It actually, to your point, it brings the power back on us because we get to now decide what we're going to put up with and what we're not because we have something else that is so important to us. Oh,
Yes.
such a good point. Such a good point. So if you have um we talked about the data, we and you talked about like some of your personal stories. Do you
Mm.
have any tips for women along the journey of doing the career pivot? Whether it's, hey, I'm thinking about it, hey, I'm in the middle of it, hey, I've already done it. Like, what would you recommend them really thinking about?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we've even touched on a couple of the big themes, but um I think some of the things that are helpful is I think women almost across the board, even when I haven't been able to learn a lot about someone who I'm working with, one thing that I can usually confidently say is that it really pays to spend more time aligning and thinking and reflecting on like, what do I actually want? What am I going for
Mm,
here? What does success look like? Right? There are
mm,
trade-offs in whatever sort of destination you are going to, whether you want to invest more time in your motherhood role at that time period or lean in more to the career role, something in the middle. And so I really encourage women to literally write down, right? Don't just have it in your head. Write down, put it somewhere, right? If you're a vision board person, if you're a journaling person, write down what your why is, right? Why do you want this change? What are the objectives that you want to meet? And that will look different for everyone, right? It might be, I want more flexibility. I want more time with my kids. It might be I want to maximize my income. I want to make an impact to my community. It can be so many things. But I think one of the most basic things is to get really, really clear, like come up with that sort of rubric of what you're hoping to achieve. Because I find that that helps women to stay really committed to the course because it's not easy and it's not without fear and guilt or shame and many of these emotions when you are making a big change and also when you're making a big investment in yourself. But if you've really
totally.
articulated your why, that can be a helpful sort of mantra to return to, right? You know, I am pursuing this career change because of X, because of Y, because of Z. So that's one simple place to start. But I think, you know, putting in writing what this goal means for you and revisiting that frequently is really, really powerful.
And is that what you would recommend, especially when someone's having just a hard day? Because I was thinking about my career pivot from a marketing a marketer for tech companies to, hey, I'm going to start my own technology company. Like that didn't make any sense. And I was like, here, I'm just going to go and go do this. And there were some dark days where I wanted to give up. So is there
Mhm.
anything else that you recommend for those like bottom days where you're like, holy smokes, it'd be real easy to hop on Indeed and find something in
Yeah.
my comfort zone?
Yes, I definitely have a few tips. The first is no matter what role you're in, whether you're doing your own thing, you're doing a career change, or you're staying in your traditional job, I think every person has those days. And what I
Mm.
like to do on those days is I call them MVP days. And this is not MVP like most valuable player. It's actually almost the opposite. It's minimum viable product. So that's a term used in the tech world for like we've done just
Yeah,
enough, right? We've done just enough.
yeah.
It's our minimum viable product. And I really encourage people to, when you're in one of those days, you reshape your day, you reshape your expectations. It's an MVP day. You are doing the bare minimum that you need to do for it to be a successful day. You are then moving on, right? You are enjoying the rest of your evening, your night, whatever you can do. You're waking up the next day and you're resetting. Because really, when you start to kind of stay in that negative energy or you make decisions from a place of that negative energy, typically what I see is that it doesn't put women on a better path towards where they're wanting to go. So it's really just about one foot in front of the other, get through those days, don't perseverate on them, don't get bogged down in them, just do the minimum that you need to do, move on, a new day's coming, start there.
I love that so much. Leah and I talk about this a lot on the days that on our MVP days. And and she always reminds me, she's like, Ashley, remember what you think is 20% is someone else's 100%. And so I
Mm,
think all of us, I mean, if you're sitting here right now listening to this, you deeply care about making yourself better. You're already taking the steps. So realistically, your MVP day is probably a 100 of someone else's day,
yeah.
100%. And so I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And another
Go ahead.
idea, Ashley, too, and I'm just, I saw a comment from Rachel about, hey, my kids are still young and I'm nervous about, am I waiting too long to get my feet back into whatever, work market? Um, And there can be, it's not just about this concern, what I'm about to say, but really any concern. I think one thing that's also helpful to do when you're worried about, am I on the right track? Like, am I doing enough? Am I making a mistake? Right. One other thing that can be really, really helpful is to not only write down your why, but write down your goals. Right. And those will look super different. So for Rachel, if your concern is about, staying active in the job market, maybe a goal for you for the next 3 months, right? And 3 months tends to be a nice kind of actionable timeline. Like maybe your goal is, hey, I want to have, coffee once a month with someone who I think is a woman who I know is still employed in the workforce, who I think will be a great relationship or contact for me to stay fresh with and continue to foster, right? Set those objectives, make them reasonable, impactful, but also reasonable, because you want to be able to get to the end of those 3 months and feel like, no, I'm doing what I said, right? Right now, I'm not trying to get a full-time job, right? Maybe Rachel's not trying to, get back to work right now. So to kind of hold yourself to that future worry or that long-term success, it can feel like you're always failing. So I think creating those short-term goals and then literally writing them down and reviewing them can help you to feel like, okay, yeah, I am on the right track. I wasn't trying to get everything under the sun done within these 3 months. I just wanted to do these few things and I did them.
Oh, such a good idea. I really, really, really love that too. Great, great, great point, Jess. So we talked about the data, we talked about tips. Now I want to hear the stories. I cannot wait. So not to give away too much, but of your top 3, 5, 10 stories of the 150 that you went through and talked to women, can you give us like a sneak peek of one of your favorites?
Yeah. There are so many great stories. One that I love is the story of a woman named Melinda Barnes. And Melinda had a career as a facial plastic surgeon. And
Wow.
this is a highly coveted subspecialty within medicine. And there is very few women who are represented in that subspecialty, and even fewer women of color and Black women. And so Melinda really was the poster child for having it all, right? Like she had made it to the top to not only she's a doctor, but she's in this very coveted subspecialty, right? It's all fantastic. And yet, even in being in this role, she had this feeling, this sort of thought that kept coming back in her ear, which is like, this isn't it, Melinda. You're meant for something different. You're meant for something more. And she really wanted to not only be a doctor, but she thought she had potential to kind of play in between the worlds of technology and business and medicine, to have an impact, not just with the patients that she worked with, but like much more broadly. How do we deliver healthcare to people in our country and even around the world? So she was thinking about leaving her role as a surgeon. And her family and her friends, who love her very much, were basically like, Melinda, you're crazy, right? This is wild. Like, what are you thinking? And she decided not to listen to them. And I love her story for 2 reasons. And the first is that she didn't listen to those people. And I think particularly as women, we are so focused on meeting the needs of others in many parts of our lives. This is especially true for mothers, that it's really easy to lose touch with that inner voice. And Melinda was someone who I think displayed exceptional courage and connection to that inner voice to say, I hear what everyone else is telling me. I hear what the external narrative is, but I'm still going to listen to myself. And ultimately, she resigned from her job with nothing else lined up. She then found another opportunity at a company called Roe. And today she is the chief medical officer at that company, Roe, which has grown to be valued at over $5 billion. She's also a board member on several public health boards in New York City and for national care delivery across the US. So, her family and friends thought, you're giving up this sort of unicorn job, this amazing, amazing role. And she did, but she believed in herself to build an even bigger one. And guess what? She did it. So I love that story for listening to her own voice and also believing in herself that she could do even better than what people were expecting of her.
I have no words. Like, that is so amazing because you're right. It did feel so coveted on the outside. And then she just amplified it. She amplified all of her value to so many people now. That's what I really, really loved about that story. Is she was like, I could do one person at a time, or I can make impact on. Oh, so great.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
some.
And often when we're thinking about career pivots, it's so easy for women to really focus on the like, what if this wildly fails scenario, right? We go there. It is so natural for people to go there. Well, what if this fails? How awful would that be? How would that impact my finances? How embarrassing would that be? Et cetera, et cetera. And you do have to think about those realities of like, yeah, what if this fails and plan for that. But what I always tell women, which is usually not a natural behavior, is you also have to train yourself to ask the reverse, which is, well, what if this wildly succeeds? What would that look like? What would that mean for me? How would that change how I can show up as a mom, as a person in my career, as a person in my community? And so, you do need to measure both sides, but I think almost every woman I encounter spends too much time worrying about the failure and not enough time bringing in the potential of that wild success.
Amazing. Yes, it's so true. Definitely guilty. Definitely guilty of just figuring out, like, or worried about, hey, what if it fails? What are people going to think? Am I going to be embarrassed? Like, you're right. You're right. Well, yeah, we're seeing a lot in the chat. Fear of failure. It's rough. It's rough. Did you like, of the 150? Did you see any other themes, like themes that were just extremely obvious from all of these women?
Yeah, I think one of the other big elements is that people sometimes think that career changing, pivoting, reinvention, whatever we want to call it, that is reserved for a risk taker, right? I hear a lot from women, oh, I'm not a risk taker. I would never do that. And I think a major, major theme of the book was twofold. One, it's, well, remember, we are all career changing now, whether we like it or not, right? Ashley, you brought up such a great point. I mean, everyone on this line is interested in an industry and a field that literally didn't exist. So you kind of don't have a choice about career changing. So that's important to keep in mind. But the second thing that I really learned is that actually career changing is not just for risk takers, right? It's easy to have this vision of, wow, there's this bold, incredible woman who like marches into her crappy boss's office on a Friday and like resigns and quits and goes out and the next day, has it all figured out. That's the Hollywood version. Of course, in real life, that doesn't happen. And the more common pathway for women who are creating this change is it's slow, it's
Mm,
methodical, it's
mhm.
intentional, and it is executed over typically years, right? So this is something that you're probably thinking about. There's sort of that seed, that first seed of thought, but then to actually executing it in a really full-time, complete way, it's usually a multi-year process. And that might sound overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, it's so much work or time. But actually, what I find is that that can be really comforting to women, right? Because you
Mm.
realize, oh, if I am someone that moves a little slower, moves a little bit more methodically, doesn't take huge risks spontaneously, um, this path actually can fit me and I could do really well on it. So I love to bring that perspective too, that it's you don't have to be wild and spontaneous to have this be a part of your career journey.
Oh, that is so good. Another question just popped up. Did you see any commonalities, or were any of the people that you interviewed, did they describe the feelings that they had that pointed them to, I need something else. Like, what were
Mm.
the emotions or signs, or like, were there any themes or trends or commonalities there?
Yeah. So the entire first section of the book, every chapter is based on an emotion. And the first section
Oh,
is called
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first section of the book, and I'm like, oh my God, let me get it right, is called Why You Feel This Way. Right. So why are so many women getting to this point where they feel like I have to change? Right. And I think the challenge is there are so many reasons that women are getting there. But part of it is that the corporate environments, which is still often where, the majority of people are working, right? Or, not owning their own business or anything like that. They're really not designed for women, right? They're not designed for women to succeed or women to thrive. We see that when you open any company website and you look at their leadership team. We see that when you understand that women are less likely to get promoted in corporate roles, even when they are performing better than their male counterparts. We see that in terms of the level of investment that women entrepreneurs receive, right? We know that investors more favorably review, companies and pitch ideas when there's a male name or a male voice or a male image behind those things. And so at some point, I call it this tax, right? This tax that women pay simply to exist in these types of organizations. Like, it gets tiring. And this tax is significantly higher for women of color and Black women who are having to
Mhm.
navigate that intersectionality, right? Of, gosh, I have to show up in another male dominated environment where I know I'm not getting promoted. I'm being criticized for not speaking enough or criticized for speaking too much. I feel like an outsider, et cetera, right? That tax just gets too much after some time. And so I think that can really build up for a lot of women where at some point they're asking themselves like, what is the point? And it pushes women to think differently and to think outside the box and pursue a lot of different pathways. I mean, including, insert Prowess project, right? So there are so many feelings that go along with that are explored in the book, but it is these feelings of frustration and isolation and loneliness. And it's one thing to have that ambition, but it's another thing to feel um, it's another thing to reflect on whether you're able to achieve that ambition within the world that you're in. And so I think we see a lot more women looking to alternative models, looking to solopreneurship, et cetera, because the systems that we have set up are just not setting us up for success.
I was just about to ask that as a follow-up question. Are you seeing more women go into entrepreneurship? Because I am. And so I was curious if that was a theme
Yeah.
you were also seeing.
Yeah, anecdotally, yes. And then from a data perspective, the highest rate of entrepreneurship is with Black women. And I think that is no
Really?
surprise when I think about this dynamic of the tax, right? I know that one of the women who I interviewed for the book, who's a Black woman in tech, but who also pursues entrepreneurial ventures on the side, her
Mm.
motivation to be an entrepreneur is that she feels like she can't bet on a corporate structure for her success, right? Her tax is so high that she's like, I'm not placing my bet on you guys. Of course, like literally guys, right? I'm not placing my bet on you guys to help me get to the top. Like, I've got to find my own path on my own. And so I think, there is this correlation of sort of the tax that people pay in an environment. And if you're paying a higher tax, at some point you say, like, I just, it doesn't make sense anymore. And then there was just a new study that was published. So I won't know the exact numbers, but it was published sometime the last few days, I think, about the rise of entrepreneurship, specifically among women since the COVID outbreak. And the hypothesis there is
Oh.
that more and more women are launching their own businesses, specifically because they have the goal of more flexibility and more work-life balance that they're not achieving in corporate structures.
Yes.
Yeah.
To everything you just said. I am so glad we have the recording of this. Like, yes, 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 yes. We are seeing that across the board too. Like, and I heard this on a podcast once, and I bring it up a lot, but someone was like, oh, entrepreneurship is so risky. And the response of the entrepreneur was like, no. In fact, being an employee is risky, or working in a corporate environment is risky because you have no control over if you have a job tomorrow. As an entrepreneur,
Mm.
I know I can always make more sales. I can always grow my business, and I'm in charge. And it goes exactly to that tax of wanting to be in control, no longer wanting to rely on a system that wasn't built with you in mind.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Jess,
and I think control is such a great word because there are trade-offs. I want to be clear about that, right? There are benefits that a
great
corporate
point.
environment does offer. But I think the word control is such a good one, Ashley, because there is this question of, how much control do you want to have over your career trajectory, and how much control are you willing to sort of cede to a corporate entity? So there's no perfect answer for or there's no one size fits all answer for every individual, but I think you're totally right. All the dynamics that we're talking about, more and more people, and especially women, are considering this non-traditional track where they have more control.
I cannot wait until insurance catches up with all of these women who want to go be entrepreneurs, because that's what I see as the biggest hurdle are the benefits and the insurance,
Yeah.
and our next business, right, Leah? Our next business. Or somehow we'll tie it into this one. Get ready, guys. Get ready. Jess, this has been amazing. We went probably a tad over. Do you have any final thoughts to leave these women with? And then we will tell all of them where they can find you and your amazing book.
Yeah, great. Hey, I'll end with these two things, which is when I speak to groups of women, I tend to hear two big messages, or women fall into one of two big groups. And one is, okay, I know I'm itching for a change, but I have no idea what I want to do. And what I always
Mm-hmm.
tell those women is this very simple thing, which is you know more than you are telling yourself. And so I think if you're in the group of, I don't know what I want to do, question that assumption. There are insights that you have that maybe you haven't been listening to, that inner voice that Melinda channeled into, but that is so hard for so many women to. So really reflect on that and spend some time thinking about that. And then for the second group of women, what I hear is, I know exactly what I want to do, but I have no idea where to begin. And for that group, if you're in that situation, I would say this: just start. There is always a way to start. And I was just in a conversation yesterday with a woman interested in starting her own small business, and just start. Find a way to maybe freelance, find a way to do a few hours of work for a friend. There's always a way to start. And once you get that momentum and traction, that's where the magic really happens. So leave you with those two thoughts. And thank you so much, obviously, for having me. This was really, really fun.
I am so incredibly grateful. Y'all, I am putting the links to check out Jess's book, her website, her LinkedIn, all in the chat. I'll be posting this on all of our stuff too. So if you can't get it, grab it here. There will be plenty of places. Jess, thank you. Seriously, this has been absolutely wonderful. For all of you who are on, thank you for being here with us. It was fantastic. Next week, we are having another Jess Sato, on to continue to talk about the specific challenges for social impact businesses and how OBMs can really help solve those. And then we have another of our masterclass coming up on November 6th. The link to register there is in the chat. I'll see all of you same time next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ashley.